There's a specific scenario that I didn't foresee that has come into possibility regarding the Portland Trail Blazers in the past couple of days. Today I'm going to talk about what that scenario is and why it could be the biggest obstacle in the Portland Trail Blazers offseason. You guys voted for this video to be dropped tonight over some other videos that I have coming up. I apologize for the hiatus in terms of uploading. I have been grinding draft graphics. The draft live stream is only a week from today. If you're new to the channel, every year we stream the NBA draft covering every pick, of course focusing on the Portland Trail Blazers, but we also usually have a fun graphics package for that. This year I'm pulling out all the stops for that production. I'm trying to rival television. I'm trying to do things that I've never really tried before. So hopefully you can catch us on Thursday, June 22nd for our NBA draft live stream. Before we jump into things, hit a like on this video. It helps me out, and subscribe if you're new to the channel so you don't miss that live stream, and let's jump into things. So I dropped a video right after the draft lottery in which I said the Portland Trail Blazers offseason depends on the Charlotte Hornets. However, in that video, I didn't cover every single scenario for the Charlotte Hornets, as their offseason could depend on what another team wants. That's what I'm going to get into today because it has a ripple effect for the Portland Trail Blazers. Now, the top 3 trade targets this offseason in discussion surrounding the Blazers trading the 3rd overall pick seem to be Jaylen Brown, Mikal Bridges, and Pascal Siakam. Brown and Siakam have 1 year left on their contract, and Mikal Bridges is really good friends with Damian Lillard. The common theme amongst these 3 targets is they don't make sense for Charlotte to trade for. Jaylen Brown and Pascal Siakam likely walk in free agency next offseason, and Mikal Bridges would much rather prefer to play in Portland next to Damian Lillard than he would in Charlotte. I think that much is obvious. So it's been presumed that Charlotte is simply going to decide to draft either Scoot Henderson or Brandon Miller. A lot of the rumors have stated that Charlotte's going to select Brandon Miller. I don't fully buy those. I still think there's a legitimate chance that they take Scoot Henderson, which would probably be a bad thing for the Blazers trading the 3rd overall pick, but would give them a player that makes more sense to pair next to Dame. By the way, the video covering a roster construction around Dame and Brandon Miller will drop tomorrow, as Brandon Miller is working out for the Blazers tomorrow. But this seemed like a simple case. If the Hornets took Brandon Miller at 2, then the Blazers would have a ton of leverage for trading the 3rd overall pick because it seems like a lot of teams want Scoot Henderson. But there is a scenario where teams wanting Scoot Henderson could actually completely backfire on the Portland Trail Blazers. Because while Portland is definitely seeing what they can get for the 3rd overall pick if Scoot Henderson is there on the board right now, the unfortunate thing is the Charlotte Hornets can field all the same trade offers. If a team is trading up for Scoot Henderson, it obviously makes more sense to trade up to 2 than to 3. They're guaranteed Scoot Henderson if they trade up to 2. If they're only able to trade up to 3, they have to wait until draft night to see if Scoot Henderson is still on the board there at 3. Which ultimately means that if the Blazers do pull off a trade, it'll likely be reported when the Blazers are on the clock or right after they select Scoot Henderson. But there's been a specific team that wants Scoot Henderson that I talked about in my last video that could throw a wrench into the Portland Trail Blazers' plans. That, of course, is the New Orleans Pelicans, with Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, the 14th pick, a bunch of future firsts, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy III. The Pelicans have a lot of ammo to get a deal done to draft Scoot Henderson, and a lot of pieces that would intrigue the Portland Trail Blazers. However, the problem is these pieces would also intrigue the Charlotte Hornets. And while scenarios 1 and 2 are drafting Scoot Henderson or Brandon Miller for Charlotte, scenario 3 is they get a deal that they like from a team that wants to draft Scoot Henderson, and they trade the 2nd overall pick. And then the team trading for that pick selects Scoot Henderson, and then the Blazers are there at 3 with Brandon Miller on the board. And in that scenario, I don't think the Blazers can pull off the same level of trades that they could if Scoot was there. But for explaining the scenario, let's just assume that the Charlotte Hornets want Brandon Miller with the 2nd overall pick. For the Hornets, that becomes a decision between Brandon Miller and what they could trade the 2nd pick for. If the Hornets can find a trade that they like more than Brandon Miller, they're obviously going to make that move, and whatever team's trading for that pick likely takes Scoot Henderson. So even if these reports are true, it doesn't guarantee that Scoot Henderson is there on the board at 3 for the Blazers, or whoever the Blazers could trade the 3rd overall pick to. Now, the reason why the New Orleans Pelicans potentially wanting Scoot Henderson could both be a blessing or a curse for the Portland Trail Blazers is because Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson make a lot more sense for the Charlotte Hornets to trade the 2nd pick for than Jaylen Brown, Mikal Bridges, or Pascal Siakam would be. Both these guys are young, have multiple years left on their contracts, and play forward positions. The reason why the Hornets would draft Brandon Miller over Scoot Henderson is likely due to fit, because he's a forward, and with LaMelo Ball already on the roster who's a point guard, Charlotte might not envision LaMelo and Scoot, 2 point guards, coexisting well in the backcourt. I think they can. I think both guys will be capable of playing off of each other, but Charlotte might feel otherwise and want Brandon Miller due to fit reasons. Unfortunately, Zion's a great fit next to LaMelo if both those guys can stay healthy, which is a big if. And Brandon Ingram is probably as good as I could see Brandon Miller ever becoming. Now, Ingram's older, and I guess in the most optimistic scenario, Brandon Miller could become even better. But if you're Charlotte and have plans at trying to win in the next 5 years or so, wouldn't it make more sense to go with the small forward that's already the sure thing, that's already an all-star caliber player, over Brandon Miller, who might just be an okay starter? I know a lot of people think Brandon Miller has a higher floor than that, but you never know with prospects like this. If I'm Charlotte, I would prefer to just go after Brandon Ingram over drafting Brandon Miller. Charlotte preferring a forward over a guard is the one thing that has given the Blazers hope for having Scoot Henderson at 3, in my opinion, but that same reasoning could end up with Charlotte trading for a Brandon Ingram or a Zion Williamson. And while it's definitely a good thing for the Blazers to have as many suitors as possible for the 3rd overall pick if Scoot is there, the more suitors there are, the more likely it is that Charlotte might find a trade with the number 2 overall pick that they like better than drafting with it. This is therefore, in my opinion, the biggest obstacle for the Portland Trail Blazers, because it seems like a lot of the options that they would otherwise prefer might not be as gettable as we hoped entering the offseason. I still hold out hope for Jaylen Brown. However, there is a chance that Boston plays hardball and just elects not to trade him if he wants out. And Pascal Siakam certainly might be gettable. However, I just don't like his fit defensively next to Jeremy Grant on the Blazers. The Blazers' options might be limited, and the more new options that become available, such as potentially the New Orleans Pelicans, could actually make it impossible to trade the 3rd overall pick for what it should be worth. Now, the one thing I haven't addressed in this video so far is you could hold out hope that a team would want Brandon Miller and be willing to trade a really good win-now player for Brandon Miller. However, there just hasn't been much buzz regarding that. So anyway, let me know what you think of this conundrum down in the comment section below. What are your predictions for draft night? We're going to have a lot of videos coming to you over the next week or so. There's still about 10 to 14 or 15 videos I want to get out before the NBA draft, so stay tuned. Hit like on all those videos. It greatly helps me out, and I greatly appreciate you doing that. And hit that subscribe button if you're new. With that being said, I'm out of here. I'll catch you in the next video. Until then, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.